Welcome to Pursuing Jesus. We're so excited to have you here listening. Today on Pursuing Jesus, we're going to talk about the cost of following Jesus, what it looks like to do that in community, and examine what happens when the veil is peeled back and the disciples begin to see Jesus for who he is. All right, we're so glad you're here. Let's jump in.
Well, welcome to... I wasn't watching you. No. Literally in my head, I went like this. 1, 2, 3. There was no Mississippis. I forgot to Mississippi it.
I was just watching him do his fingers, and he was at like 2. And you
I was just straight ahead thinking 1, 2, 3. Okay, cool. No one's talking. I'll talk.
So, Sean, you are going to open us, but you're going to do it in.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to the Pursuing Jesus podcast. My name is Sean Griffin.
And my name is not Sean Griffin.
And my name is not Ben Smith.
And welcome. It's so glad that all of you guys are here with us. Thank you for joining us on what week are we on?
I think this is 15.
Week 15.
We're firmly into the blue book now. We've ditched the orange book.
Yep.
Salmon.
Not salmon, not
Salmon.
pink.
It's orange.
It's orange.
It's 100% orange.
Orange. Were y'all involved in the debate on my shirt color on Sunday?
No, what happened?
Oh my God.
Oh, it was pink.
So depending on where I was at, it was either orange or pink.
No, your shirt was 100% orange.
100%
No.
orange. 100% orange. But now I will concede this little point. So Karen Webb had on an outfit that was more pinkish, but when I stood next to her, I blended very well with her. We discovered this on the front porch.
I see.
Mm-hmm.
But on the stage, in those lighting, 100% orange.
I was going to ask, do you think this is like stage lighting versus sun lighting? Or
No, it's still an orange shirt. Like outside, it's still orange. But like just because like if you're standing near pink, it's going to look a little bit more pink. And so...
But Karen would tell you that it was peach, which is a pinkish color.
Yeah, but this we're dudes working on a reductionist color scale.
Yeah.
Maddie's like, yeah, that's subtle peach. I'm like, why is it subtle? Like, the second we start adding adjectives,
It looks orange to me.
Boisterous peach.
Yeah, the second we start adding adjectives to colors, like I'm out. It's like when you get to algebra, letters and numbers, they don't mix. Speaking of the color that your shirt might have been, so John, what were those two colors? Pink and what?
And peach.
Peach, but like the reduction color, like it was either pink or
Orange.
Yeah. So I discovered this. Not everybody says that color the same way.
Orange.
Orange.
So I figured this out. I figured this out when I
call it orange, but
Orange.
Orange. Right. Well, so when I went to Ohio for college,
I was wondering if this was like a dialect thing.
it is, and I met Maddie's family. Like I was like, hey, can you pass me some orange juice? And they're like, orange juice, like like a pirate, orange. I'm like, what do you say? It's orange. Orange.
It's more British.
I don't even know if it's more British.
It's popular.
But no. Of course, this is the same people that say roof instead of roof. And
can't
George
respect-
Washington.
I can't respect
they
those
add
decisions.
an R. It's almost as bad as library instead of library.
Roof. What in the world?
I know. If you're listening and you say roof, get out of here.
Get out. We love you all.
We do. And we love you all so much that, Sean, you want to start our...
Are we ready?
Yes.
I guess. I don't know. Isn't that what we're here to do, guys? Pursue Jesus? And all that.
So for those of you following along with us, I'm looking at April 11th. And April 11th was one of the feedings that Jesus did the miracle of. And I think we talked about this was the feeding of the 4,000. Mm-hmm. And but I'm not even going to really get there because, once again, it was one of those times where Jesus kind of stopped me when I was reading. And I just focused on one little part. And I just want to share. That's what I like doing on this podcast, y'all.
For sure.
If y'all haven't realized that yet over the 15 weeks we've been doing this.
14.
But I like to just share my heart and ignore when Ben tries to correct me. And
I do think they know you do that.
Yeah, they know that. But let me just read it. I'm going to be reading from Matthew. The passage for the day is Matthew 15, 32 through 39. We're stopping in 32. We got one verse. And here's what it says. It says, Jesus called his disciples and said, I have compassion on the crowd because they've already stayed with me 3 days and have nothing to eat. I don't want to send them away hungry, otherwise they might collapse on the way. And there's a couple different things there that that shows the heart of Jesus and the compassion he has for humanity. But what really struck me is the crowd. That the crowd was with him for 3 days, and we don't know how long they were without food, but it could have been for the entire 3 days because they probably just traveled to hear a guy teach on a hillside.
Yeah.
Probably didn't bring much food with them, if anything at all. And so these people were willing to go without food for days, more than likely, to go without sustenance and just to hear Jesus speak. And it got me thinking, what am I willing to give up to listen to Jesus?
Wow.
You know, and I mean that thought was really stuck in my head, and I couldn't, like, I read the rest of the passage, but like all my notes that I took, everything that I was thinking of that morning was, what is Jesus asking me to give up? And not in a, like, I'm going to give up Instagram kind of way.
Okay.
Because they gave up food to spend. I mean, they gave up something that is a necessity to live, and they gave it up for a short period of time to spend time with Jesus. And so really we're looking at sacrificial type of giving to Jesus. And really that's what worship's all about. And when we look at the Old Testament, we look at really the word sacrifice is tied deeply in with the word worship. And even today, really when we worship Jesus, it's about, what am I giving up? What am I willing to give up? What am I willing to admit to myself that I need to do and spend more time with Jesus? So yeah, that's where I've been at.
No, that's huge. And I feel like that act of giving up can be so misconstrued because I think it varies. In some ways, it varies person to person. Like, we each have that one thing that when it is stripped away from us, we can no longer be who we are on a regular basis.
Yeah.
But even with the fasting piece of, like, when Jesus, it's about what Jesus asks you to give up, not about what, like, oh, I could give this up. 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 I mean, he knows us, and he's the shepherd of our souls. And so it's like with the rich young ruler. Right? Jesus knew he had much. And the rich young ruler is like, dude, I got this. I've got all of the, I'm following the commandments. I'm doing all this stuff. And what do I lack? And so Jesus, knowing he had all that stuff, said, sell what you have, give to the poor, follow me. Jesus didn't ask him to give up something. Jesus asked him to give up himself.
Yeah. So what's interesting is, as you were speaking, that's exactly what I started to think about.
Oh, shoot.
Because that's what I taught in chapel today.
No way.
Yeah, I spent time with that in chapel with our students, and, getting them to understand that, one, this wasn't prescriptive for all Christianity.
Yeah.
This was for this person's heart. And it's just like this whole passage here where Jesus has compassion, but he's also looking like, hey man, like, what are you willing to give up to me? What is taking my place in your heart? We've got to deal with that. Yeah.
And I think at least in my own life, like, that's been a very oniony issue. Not like when you cut it.
It smells?
No, it's when you cut it, it makes you cry. But no, like, there's been layers to it. Like, I think, like, in my life, there have been 8 or 9 things that I'm like, oh, this is the thing I'm holding on to stronger than Jesus. And, like, he will lovingly peel that back, and it's freaking painful. But we get there, we get to that depth of relationship, and I sit there for a little bit.
Yeah.
And then a little later, he's like, all right, you're holding on to this more than you're holding on to me too.
Yeah.
And maybe that's just the sanctification process of, like, as he's shaping our hearts more and more to be like him. But I think it's not a one and done.
I think it's, I mean, like you said, it's part of that sanctification process, and it's not even a material or physical thing. I mean, it could be something internally that God is dealing with. It could be pride.
Yeah.
It could be things like that we have internally that we put ourselves higher than Jesus that we have to deal with.
John, I'm curious, since you've been in ministry the longest of the three of us, like, how have you seen that? Like, Jesus is asking me to give up this one thing. How have you seen that in church?
I've talked with several people that they struggle with a particular sin. I mean, I think Satan knows exactly where to hit us when it comes to that. And, when you've dealt with it for years and years and years, and you wonder if you could ever overcome that struggle.
Yeah.
And so they battle it. I mean, it is a battle. It is a spiritual battle that goes on in our lives. And some people overcome it and some don't. I mean, I have seen victory in some people's lives, and I have seen just guilt-ridden, staying in the sin, still feeling the anger towards it, that they would love to get rid of it. But, I think sometimes I love a statement that was in a book by Tom Rainer, Breakout Churches. And he made the statement. He said, sometimes the best, sometimes the good is what distracts us from the best.
Yeah.
And the idea is that it can be good things that we need to give up to spend more time with Jesus. There can be good things that are distracting us from the main thing. Like, I love spending time with my kids, but it shouldn't take away from my time from the Lord. I love spending time with my wife, but that can't take away from my time with the Lord.
Along those same lines, I know somebody really, really well. If you're listening to this podcast and you go to our church, you'll know who I'm talking about. Oh, who is a therapist.
Wow.
Give me more hints, please.
They also know me really, really well.
Sits on the very front row.
They happened to go to the same college as I did. This is coincidence. I'm talking about my wife here. So some of y'all may not know this. So Madison, and I think she'd be comfortable with me sharing this, and I get to edit this afterwards. So if it's in there, you'll know that I talked to her and she said she was cool with it. Madison did not start her college career as a psychology major or as a counseling major. Maddie actually began as a worship major. Like her degree was in worship ministry, and she really that's something that she wanted. She wanted to serve in the church. She wanted to be a Christian singer songwriter, and man, she chased hard after that. Gist of it is the Lord led her away from worship ministry. Her freshman year, she's like, Ben, like the thing I love about what we're learning is the conversations I get to have before and after we sing. If she had continued to hold on to the worship ministry idea, like, this is a good thing, this is serving God, like in a church, she would have missed out on what has honestly been his best for her. One other thing I want to draw out here, and this I think this fits well with kind of the macro theme of like church and community that we continue to walk into and explore. When the Lord shows you that one thing you're supposed to give up, it has been my experience, it's so hard to do that by yourself.
You need the accountability.
I had somebody tell me recently, like, look, dude, you can convince yourself of anything. And I think that's true. If the Lord shows you the area to give up, whether it's your fishes and loaves, whether it's your riches, whether it's whatever, tell somebody. Like, genuinely. Find somebody who's chasing Jesus, get into community, and have those conversations like, hey, I think the Lord's really laying this on my heart. Will you ask me about this next week, man?
Yep.
And if you see me doing something that looks contrary to this, like, I give you permission, please speak into this.
Yes.
Because without that accountability, I feel like it's so much harder.
I think this is one of the areas where a lot of people fall short too, because even like you said, we'll convince ourselves that, if the Lord's laying something on our heart during a sermon like this, like, I need to do this. Okay, I'm going to go to the altar. And you go to the altar like, okay, cool. I feel better now.
Done. Wash my hands of it. Yeah.
But that's great that you spoke to Jesus about what God laid on your heart. But there's something different about having that personal accountability with another human being.
100%.
And that's the church. That's what the church is all about, is about being in community with each other. And it's something that I think we're losing in our culture today. We are unwilling to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
We're unwilling to sit down and admit our sins with other people.
Do you think that's a uniqueness to our cultural moment, or do y'all feel like that's like a human nature thing? Or
I would say it's an American thing, because in Kenya, I don't think they cared. Call them out. I mean, really. I mean, I hate to say it, they just call it out. So I almost think it's an American thing, because, like he said, it's pride.
I can see that. I mean, we are becoming more private and more prideful. Yeah.
As somebody said, we now sit on our back porch instead of our front porch.
And they missed out on Lone Star's Front Porch Looking In. Everybody knows it's a good song. Nobody?
I have no comment.
Okay, well, it's a great song. That's your homework for today, guys. I feel like we're talking about like Jesus asking things of us, right? We're talking about how that can be difficult. John, I feel like that's a great pivot to your text. Do you want to go ahead and talk about the cost of following Christ?
I see how you did that. It was your turn, but I'll go ahead. Yeah. I was looking at the discipleship cost, and it's funny because the passage that really comes before it, about the discipleship is when Peter denies what Jesus is going to do. Jesus tells him, it's necessary for him to go to Jerusalem, suffer many things from the elders, be killed, raised up. Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him, not say to him, but rebuke him, saying, God forbid, Lord, this shall never happen to you. And this is where Jesus looks at Peter and says, get behind me, Satan. And it's just amazing because it falls on the tails of where Peter was exclaiming him as king, as Lord. And a part of discipleship is learning to give up our will, what we think is right. And that is where that correction came in from Jesus, just to kind of slap him in the face, and say, get behind me, Satan. I just wondered, how many people have ever been called Satan by somebody, And so, literally he looks at Peter, he says, you're a stumbling block to me for your not setting your mind on God's purpose, but men's. And in order to be a disciple of Christ, that's the first thing that has to go is our purpose, our desires, our wills. It's to follow him. And that's why Jesus follows it up with the cost of discipleship right after that when he says this, if anyone wants to come after me, first thing, he must deny himself. And that's one of the hardest things that we have as Christians is denying ourselves, because we are told to look out for ourselves, to do the best for ourselves, to make it all about ourselves. And so when Jesus tells us to deny ourselves, that means that we've got to be willing to give up our desires, our purposes, our goals. And so, it's those things you have to give up first, and if you look at the gospel, it's repentance. It's that part of giving up first. So deny yourself, take up his cross, which they knew that literally meant death to self, and possibly death to life. And then follow me, because he says, for whoever wants to save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for my sake will find it. For what good will it do a person if he gains the whole world but forfeits his own soul? And I think that the reason why this text hits me, and I love it so much, is because we talk about the free grace of God. 100%. It is, salvation is 100% fully free. It is done on the cross. But to be a true follower of Christ, there is a cost. There is a major cost. And that's what Jesus is saying here. He's like, if you really want to come after me, there is a cost if you're really going to follow me.
100%. And he makes it really clear. What will it profit a man if he gains the whole wide world and loses soul? That's another song I'm not going to sing. Toby Mac, it's a good one.
It's been in my brain since he quoted the scripture.
Same here. One thing I will say, the verbiage of this, one of the things that stood out to me, going along with what you said, John, is if anyone would come after me, the way that Jesus starts that. And so one of the things I wrote down is nothing we do in the spiritual walk is original. We, even in denying ourselves and taking up our cross, we follow in the footsteps of our Savior.
Yes.
Jesus is our ultimate example, but as that Christ life is built in us, he himself is working in us to do the thing that he did first. I think it's Philippians 2. He didn't count equality with God a thing to be grasped, but he humbled himself and became obedient to that death. And this may be a stretch, but even Jesus didn't carry the cross by himself.
Yeah.
He needed help making his way up.
Simon the Cyrene. And so plugging right back into community, as you are carrying your cross, do it with somebody else. Yeah. And you're right. Discipleship is about following in somebody's footsteps. One of the coolest things that I remember, we had a little dog when Julie and I first got married. His name was Levi, and he was a black lab, and it snowed. It was 2 foot of snow. So I go outside and I'm traipsing through and I step in, and Julie lets Levi out. Well, he won't go off the porch. Well, finally what he sees as he sees me walk out, I see this little black puppy jumping from each of my footprints to the other one.
Yep.
He is jumping where my feet were, because to him that was safe. If I had already been there, it was safe for him.
Yeah.
And that was one of the coolest things, because I thought that's discipleship. It is following in someone's footsteps. It is safe to follow in the footsteps of Christ, or as Paul said, imitate me as I imitate Christ. So discipleship is following somebody who is following Christ, or the whole follow the leader thing.
Yeah. But it's so counterintuitive. Like verse 25, forever would save his life will lose it, but whoever who loses his life for my sake will find it. Like, that's the opposite of the world that's the opposite of the world that we function in.
Yeah.
I think like modern American culture might read that whoever would save his life will save it, and whoever loses his life for any sake will still lose it.
Yeah.
And so that backwards like denial of self, taking up cross, is actually the path to ultimate freedom, the path to ultimate joy, which is the exact opposite of what the message we get from our culture. And I think that's why when people examine Christianity who aren't part of Christianity, it can seem like this is ridiculous. You know, like I think about the Roman Empire. You know, there's that trend on social media that was like, you know, how often does your man think about the Roman Empire? I think about it often. But when Christianity was born, it was heavily persecuted under Nero. And then all of a sudden, under Constantine, it was legalized. Just like
State church. Yep.
State church. Of course, we could say a lot about Constantine in the negative, but here's the thing. The early Christians did not conquer the Roman Empire, conquer in quotes, by social reform. They didn't conquer by political lobbying. They certainly didn't conquer by force. They conquered by love. They conquered by the way they treated one another. They conquered by taking in the kids that were left out to die and as orphans, you know? They conquered by showing the love of Christ to their culture. And it was that radical difference that made people scratch their heads and go, hold on, what? You know? So, yeah, that it's counterintuitive, but it's so, so important.
Yep. Well, Ben, how about your passage? You said you chose the Transfiguration.
Yep. So going from April 16th to April 17th. By the way, if you're listening to this podcast and you have not done your taxes, it's too late. I'm so sorry. If you haven't filed for an extension, it is too late. I was hoping one of y'all would pick April 15th so I could be like, it's tax day. Yeah, sorry. So I wanted to dig into the Transfiguration with you guys a little bit. And I'm going to read from the Luke account because that's kind of the one that a detail stood out to me that I had never realized before. So Luke 9, starting in verse 28, I'm just going to read it. Now, about 8 days after these sayings, he took with him Peter and John and James, dream team, and went up to the mountain to pray. And as Jesus was praying, the appearance of his face was altered, and his clothing became dazzling white. And behold, 2 men were talking with him, Moses and Elijah, who appeared in glory and spoke of his departure, which he was about to accomplish at Jerusalem. Now Peter and those who were with him were heavy with sleep, but when they became fully awake, they saw his glory and the 2 men who stood with him. And then Peter puts his foot in his mouth. Classic Peter. I had never put this together before. The 2 people that appear to him, Moses and Elijah, are so important. I had never thought about this before. So I have a little superscription in my Bible that in verse 30 when it says, or 31 when it says, who appeared in glory and spoke of Jesus' departure, the Greek is Exodus. And so like okay, so there's the Exodus. That's why Moses is here. And then Elijah is one of the people who got taken up bodily into heaven, which is what happens to Jesus at the end of this book. And so, like, these are the perfect 2 to encourage in fellowship with Jesus. Particularly, they know the gospel plan. Like, that was something that stood out to me. I was like, hold on. Like, they're talking to Jesus about the thing Jesus is about to do. I don't know what it looked like pre-Jesus's birth in heaven with the saints of old, if they were in Abraham's bosom or if this is heaven or whatever. But I was like, well, hold on. That had never stood out to me that there in Christ there is an Elijah figure and a Moses figure kind of put into one in this passage.
Yeah, and what's really cool too is they represent the law and the prophets, right? And the law and the prophets
I hadn't thought about that.
Are pointing to the sacrifice of the Son of God. They're pointing to the Messiah. And so, yeah, you talk about a Moses-like figure. Well, you go to Deuteronomy where it talks about a prophet like Moses.
Yeah,
and so you talk about Elijah being the forerunner before the Messiah. But yeah, it's really neat to see that they're talking about his death.
For
and
sure.
What's interesting is when you look at the passage that I just did before, where he talked about his death and Peter denied it. Now here he is, 6 days later it says, and he's hearing Moses and Elijah. But here's my question. How did he know it was Moses and Elijah? Had he ever seen them before?
I have no idea. I mean, I guess, I know how Jesus knew it was Moses and Elijah, the perfect knowledge and all that. But I guess, Luke hung with Paul and Paul was an apostle. So maybe the Holy Spirit was like, yeah, that was Moses and Elijah. Or maybe they had name tags. I don't know. We got our little lanyards.
Hello, my name is.
Hello, my name is Moses. Hello, my name is Elijah.
But I've always wondered that, honestly, because Peter goes, hey, let me build you 3 tabernacles, one for you, one for Moses, one for Elijah. And it's like, so how did he know it was Moses and Elijah?
That's actually,
maybe it was based on what they were wearing or something. I don't know.
They had costumes.
Oh, cool.
The other thing that stuck out to me is like, man, I long to see Jesus like this. If you go to Memorial and you've been here on Wednesday nights, John's preaching through Revelation, and we've gotten some scenes of the throne room and of scenes in heaven where Jesus appears, and the descriptions are complimentary that we see of Jesus transfigured and Jesus in heaven, of the startling white robes, and then the Revelation adds in the voice like thunder and all that stuff. But to be so close to the holiness of Christ and just to see him in like a way where you can still say stupid stuff like Peter does. And Jesus responds with mercy, but it's like, man, you just saw the real deal, or enough of the real deal where you hit the deck when God's voice spoke. I sat in that for a little bit, just thinking about like the closeness that they were able to have in that moment. And that we're promised, we'll get to see him because we'll be as he is.
Can you imagine how beautiful that was though? I mean, just boom. I mean, right in front of their eyes, transfigured. One says white like snow. One says white as light. I mean, it was just like, that had to be the most amazing visual, because to be in the presence of a holy God and to be an unholy man usually meant, you were dead.
Yeah.
Right.
Toast.
And so here they are able to see the glory of God fall down upon the Son of God. And it just, I don't know. It is amazing. I love this story.
It is.
It's one of those things that, I wish we had more details, but at the same time, like you were just talking about, like the different descriptions of the color white and just everything, like it must have been one of those kind of like Revelation where it's like they're having to use words that are in our vocabulary to explain something that has never been seen before on earth. And so it's extremely difficult to do.
Yep.
But man, if there's ever a story where I'm like, I want more descriptive words, I want to know more.
Yes.
This is one of those times.
Well, so here's another detail that Ben had never put together. Verse 31, Moses and Elijah appear in glory and spoke of his departure, which he was about to accomplish in Jerusalem. 32, now Peter and those who were with him were heavy with sleep, but when they became fully awake, they saw his glory and the two men that stood with him. To me, that infers like a little bit of time passes. Like they're praying, they're asleep, and Peter, James, and John wake up to Jesus having this threefold conversation. I picture them a little like Pippin and Merry from Lord of the Rings. Like one of them opens his eyes and he smacks the other guy, and he's like, "Look at those guys." And it's only when the two begin to depart that Peter finally works up the guts to say something and just like puts his foot directly in his mouth.
Would you agree that Peter is Pippin?
Oh, goodness.
I mean, like, I think that's probably the closest parallel that we have. Peter is Pippin. I could see James as Mary. John might be a Samwise. I don't see a Frodo in the Fellowship.
I don't see a Frodo.
No. Of course, you got with Tolkien, he like splits up his Christ figure. So like you see Jesus in Gandalf, you see Jesus in Aragorn, you see Jesus in Frodo. That's a whole nother podcast conversation. I could talk about that for a long time.
Well, I'll tell you, I think it's pretty neat when you look at the transfiguration. And but what's really interesting too is when they come down off the mountain, Jesus says, "Don't tell anybody."
Yeah,
like keep this to yourself. And there's so many of those moments where Jesus says, "Don't go tell anybody." So he's like inferring to them. He has told them a number of times, and that's why it's so interesting when you read the resurrection that they don't get it.
Right.
And so, but he's like, you when you see me again, you'll be able to, you'll understand this a little bit better.
I think it's easy to dunk on the disciples for a lot of things, but I think they're there to represent us.
Oh, 100%.
Like in our stumbling, failing ways of following Jesus, where we're 2 steps forward, 1.5 steps back.
Yep. I can't tell you how many times that Peter is an encouragement. You've got Peter, the rock, who also gets responded to as Simon in times of mistakes, and then you've got this guy who is a almost leader figure of the disciples. He's a part of that inner circle. And yet you see him make some of the largest mistakes recorded in Scripture within the groups of the disciples. And it just, once again, it portrays going back to the love that Jesus has for humanity.
Seriously.
And just the incredible grace that I don't understand. That it is so difficult for me to give to others. Like, just legit, you know?
Yeah. And two, you think about this. This is not the only time he gets caught sleeping when he's not supposed to be sleeping.
Nope.
So it just goes to show that naps are not from the Lord.
I mean, like, I think that's.
This is I disagree theologically.
I'm kidding.
This is
Sean's like, I'm going to fight this tooth and nail. Go ahead and drop a comment on this podcast or on this video if you're listening to YouTube.
Sunday naps are godly.
Okay, I will tell you, dude. Particularly after coming to Memorial, like that Sunday nap is necessary for you, boy. Sometimes I'll find a place in a park, set up my hammock.
All right, so I got a question for you guys.
Here we go.
All right, I knew this was going to be a question, and it is in Tuesday's reading of the blind man who is able to see. And the question was really interesting because I tried to look this up in commentaries and stuff. And it says, he taken the blind man by the hand, verse 23, he brought him out of the village after spitting on his eyes and laying his hands on him. He asked him, do you see anything? And he looked up and said, I see people, for I see them like trees walking around, which meant they were blurred. Then again, he laid his hands on his eyes and looked intently and was restored and began to see everything clearly. And the fact that Jesus had to touch him twice, that's the question a lot of people are going to have is, in every other miracle, they were instant. And yet in this one, it's twice. He has to, the first time he can see, not clearly, but then Jesus fully restores his sight. Why did he have to touch him twice?
Well, I feel like when you look at the miracles of Jesus, there are commonalities, but there's not a method. Like you said on Sunday, like Jesus is Lord over time and space, and so sometimes he says it with a word, sometimes he touches the person, sometimes he just he says it and the person's not even present and they're healed. And so, like drawing like how to heal a blind person methodology is not really what we're looking for here.
Well, but I think there's just something important there. So even like Matthew 15 verse 29, which is part of this week's reading as well. It says, moving on from there, Jesus, this ends off, I think it's at the very beginning of the week of our readings. But moving on from there, Jesus passed along the Sea of Galilee. He went up on a mountain and sat there. And large crowds came to him, including the lame, the blind, the crippled, those unable to speak, and many others. They put them at his feet, and he healed them. So we're talking about mass healing, just one after the other. So the crowd was amazed when they saw those unable to speak talking, the crippled restored, the lame walking, the blind seeing, and they gave glory to the God of Israel. So I kind of want to broaden this question a little bit because I think it all goes together. But going off what you just said, and that is, why is Jesus's methods always different? Because like you were just saying, I mean, you've got a story right here. I believe that we all know, knowing who Jesus is, knowing that he has the power to speak at someone that is miles away and they get healed. Jesus could have gone on this mountaintop and spoke, and every person would have been healed at all once. I think we can all agree that he has the power to do that. He didn't. Why didn't he? Why did he heal them one at a time? Why does he choose to heal in different ways? Is there a reason?
The way I've always seen it is he wants to show us faith over procedure. If it was he spit in the mud, made mud, put it on the dude's eyes, and had him go wash in the pool of Siloam, and he did that to every blind person, what would they think healed the blind person?
The spit, the mud, the pool of Siloam.
or
Or you
That
have a
would- that
line
would
of
be- that would
believers
be an-
outside the pool of Siloam today
I was
mixing
gonna
their
say,
own spit.
this would be
Yes.
an ordinance of the church.
Yes,
Like it would.
Yeah.
It would be something. And if Jesus touched their forehead every time,
Yes.
if Jesus would have laid hands on all of them, if Jesus would have kept it the same every single time, us as humanities and fallen as we are, we would have interpreted that is the way to heal.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
So
would
I think
be
that's a huge part of it. Yeah.
procedure over faith.
But I will say, I think that the reason that so many of these are individual is because like he works person to person.
Yes.
Like it's for Jesus, the miracle is not just about healing physical ailments. It's about healing that sin sickness in us. And so for him to look each person in the eye and one commonality we do see, he always says, or he often says, your sins are forgiven you.
Yeah.
And so to make that connection, I think where it's relationship. That's what he's after.
You wanted to have Walmart Jesus, right? Just everybody can come in and go out. Is that?
No, that's not Walmart Jesus, John. That's Oprah Jesus.
Oh,
you get a healing. And you get a healing. And you get a healing.
That's right. That's better.
But I think that's what I love. And even like the passage that I just read, that knowing that Jesus had the power to heal them all, and then let's go back. He could have healed them all and taken a nap. Let's go back to that. But he didn't, because relationships are more important.
Yep.
Yes.
He
100%.
wanted to spend time with each individual person. And so going back to the guy that he did it twice for, I think the reason he did it was for that man. That man needed there was a reason Jesus did it relationally for that person.
Yeah, I'm with you. I've heard the hot take that Jesus like opened his eyes to the spirit realm first, and so he was seeing like what angels and demons see rather than what we see. I don't see that in the text. Would it be cool? Yes. That strikes me more as like when Frodo puts on the ring and he can see in the shadow realm.
Oh, goodness. I'll tell you the two speculations that kind of stood out to me. And again, speculations, because we don't have the answer. He doesn't give it to us. But the first one was it was based on the man's faith, that he had faith to go to Jesus, just not enough to be fully healed. There might be some merit to that. I find that a little difficult because, I mean, they look at it like the Nazareth thing, where Jesus didn't do many miracles in his hometown because of the lack of faith.
But when did our faith have to be perfect to be acceptable in his eyes?
Exactly. Yeah. The other one was it was based on the disciples needing another touch to fully understand who Jesus really was. And I thought that was interesting because even after he proclaims it again and again and again, who he is, they still didn't quite get it. But again, both of those are just speculation. We really don't have an answer as to why it took 2 times.
Yeah, I hear you. Well, guys, this has been fun. Good question to end on here. Episode 15 in the books. I have been Ben Smith.
I'm Sean Griffin.
And I'm John Ferguson.
And we are still here pursuing Jesus. We'll catch you guys next week.
Pursuing Jesus is a ministry of Memorial Baptist Church in Norwood, North Carolina. To learn more about our church, please visit memorial4norwood.com. I've never been to Topeka, Kansas.